My name is Jim Kaseman. Welcome back. We're talking about getting to know God intimately. And we left over in the last session where we had talked about how God cut covenant with Abram through God the Son. And we talked about that in some length, how it was similar to Jesus taking our place on the cross. We didn't qualify to go to the cross, but we were saved through Jesus. Well, now Abram, though, is in covenant with God through Jesus. Now, God promised Abraham an heir that would come out of his own wombs. And of course we see in chapter 17, and I'll pick it up, verse 15, chapter 17. Then God said to Abram, as for Sarah your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she'll be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and he said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. Then God said, no, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. We see in Galatians chapter 3 that Isaac is a type of Christ. And so then he said, I'll establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, because out of Isaac's loins would come the Messiah way down the road, and then he would cut an everlasting covenant with him. You know, in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20, now may the God of peace, who brought up our Lord Jesus from the dead, that great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant. And that's the new blood covenant. It's the everlasting covenant. And it was cut right there on the cross with God the Father and the innocent, sinless man, Jesus. That's exactly where it was cut. Glory be to God. All right, so they established an everlasting covenant with him. Now, he appears to Abram in Genesis chapter 22 and in verse 1. Now, it came to pass after these things that God tested Abram and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. Then he said, take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him up there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Now, they go through all of this trouble to receive this supernatural son, Isaac, with Abram 100 years old, Sarah 90 years old, and there's no guarantee. Now, Abram, notice he immediately, it says in verse 3, so Abram rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. Abram immediately obeyed God. Now, this has got to be something, because this is his only son. And the chances of getting another son is, who knows if that'll ever happen again. But yet he obeys God. He gets up early in the morning and takes off. Well, he not only believed in a supernatural birth, but Abraham also trusted God enough, as we're going to see here, to offer up his son as a sacrifice. And he had enough faith to believe that his son, who would be dead, could be resurrected from the dead. I mean, this is Abram. I mean, he just totally trusts God. So they get up early in the morning. And of course, he takes the wood with it for the burnt offering. And then on the third day, Abram lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. So the Lord took him to Mount Moriah. Now, what is so special about Mount Moriah? Well, Mount Moriah is located right there in Jerusalem, and you can see the mount. And what is on that mount? Well, that mount is exactly where the temple, where the Dome of the Rock is setting. That is the Muslims have built that right over the top of the rock that Isaac was laid on with the wood, where Abraham would kill Isaac and then set the logs on fire and burn and offer them up as a burnt offering. Now, I've been blessed. I have had the opportunity on 2 different occasions, on 2 different trips in Israel, to actually go into that mosque, the Dome of the Rock. And when I entered into it, of course, here's this big open space, because it's a huge dome with all kinds of Arabic writings on the walls and stuff like that. But then in the center, there is an opening where you go down, I don't think more than half a dozen steps that you go down. And there is the rock that Abraham laid Isaac on. It's right there. But now the Muslims don't believe that Isaac was laid on that rock. They believe that Ishmael was laid on that rock. See? And Ishmael is of the flesh. Isaac is of the spirit. He's the foreshadowing of Jesus. But that's what the devil does. He gets everything he can and perverts it. So this is where Abraham is going. Now, verse 8, and Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you." Abraham is obeying God. He's on his way up to Mount Moriah to kill Isaac, lay him on that rock and kill him, and along with all the wood and everything that's there, burn him as a burnt offering. He's on his way to obey God. But he really believes that God will provide a substitute or raise his son from the dead. So he said, we're coming back. We're both coming back. You talk about a confession of faith right there. Stay here with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder and worship, and we will come back to you. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac, his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and the 2 of them went together. But Isaac spoke to Abram, his father, and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." Then he said, "Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? Where's the offering? Where's the lamb?" And Abram said, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering." So the 2 of them went together. Then they came to the place of which God had told him, and Abram built an altar there and placed the wood in order, and he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar upon the wood. Oh, it's amazing. Isaac would have to be around 30 years old at this point. He's an adult. He's not a child. And you notice he's not resisting Abraham at all. He's obedient. He's a type and shadow of Jesus. Jesus was nailed to the altar of the cross. He went there voluntarily. He didn't fight it, just like Isaac. And then Abram stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." So he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Wow. You talk about faith. Abraham, of course, had faith. But our time has come to an end, and we'll pick it up again as soon as we get back. Meanwhile, be blessed in everything that you set your hands to do.